here is my spicy trade of this trade deadline special, and it is Mr. Mac Jones headed out of New England to get a fresh start in Las Vegas.
Want to talk
Now,
about superstar trades? Here we go, right here. This is it. This is the big
dude, the
finale, dude.
dynamo. The dynamo that is Mac Jones could be headed out of town in New England. And I say that in all jest. I do understand the rebuttal against this trade. We were talking about it in the Blitz group chat before the episode. And we were like, you guys, you and Mitchell were like, I think other guys in the Patriots are more likely to be dealt. And then you started listing them, and it's like Kyle Duggar. And it's like, I would much rather talk about Mac Jones being traded in depth than a Kyle Duggar. But that's nonetheless the point. Mac Jones to the Raiders could be happening at this year's deadline, and let me tell you why. So, a report came out today from Mike Giardi, something like that, something along those lines. But a trusted reporter, heard his name plenty of times. But he reported that people in the Pats building would rather, quote, have more losses than a win or two that could cost draft positioning. And this comes after a report earlier in the day that Robert Kraft is seriously considering moving on from Bill Belichick when it's all said and done. So you're getting reports out of New England right now that you haven't seen in a very, very long time. I mean, it seems like they are headed towards a full rebuild. And, I mean, have more losses than a win or two sure sounds like tanking to me. So it sounds like the Patriots want to have a high draft pick this coming season, and they could have their eyes set on say, Caleb Williams, or maybe they're not as high in the draft position to draft Caleb Williams. Maybe it's a Drake May. But nonetheless, this team seems like they're in the market for their next franchise quarterback, because the guy that they drafted in the first round in 2020 does not seem to be working out in New England. He had an impressive first year. I will say that, and I've been clamoring this for a long time. Like, Mac Jones, let's not get too far down the pike on Mac Jones. So, he was a universally first-round pick. I mean, that was no question about it in 2020. Like, there's quarterbacks that end up going a little early, sneak into the end of the first round, middle of the first round, just because they're a quarterback. It's the most important position. And then you hear teams say, maybe he doesn't have a first-round grade, but it's a quarterback, you get your guy, yada, yada, yada. None of that talk was with Mac Jones. And in his rookie season, he leads a mediocre offense at best, granted, with a good defense. That defense pretty much is what got them there.
Best defense in the league in that season.
Yeah, okay. Granted, that's why I mentioned it. Very good defense, but he led a mediocre offense to the playoffs while also making a Pro Bowl. I know you are not the biggest fan of Pro Bowls, and that's totally understandable. But to put it into perspective, he finished 2021 11th in PFF pass grade among all qualified quarterbacks. But since 2021, it's not been good. And I totally understand that. But here's the context. In his rookie season, he had Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels has won Super Bowls, many Super Bowls with the Patriots as their OC. So he had plenty of experience in New England. You can say whichever you want about Josh McDaniels. He was a great offensive coordinator in New England. That's not up for debate. And Josh McDaniels left Vegas after Mac Jones' rookie season. And then he gets to play with Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator in 2022, which was arguably the worst offensive coordinator probably maybe in the history of the league. I think that that's up for debate. I think that definitely is in the conversation. But nonetheless, it was a terrible situation to step in his sophomore season. So, of course, that doesn't work out very well. And then headed into this year, I know Jacoby Myers isn't exactly a world burner, but he did lose his, by far, wide receiver one in New England, and they just let him walk in free agency. So that's why I think Mac Jones has a shot to end up with Vegas at this year's trade deadline. And the reason is Jimmy G, he's missed some time. He's already missed time in 2 games so far this year. He had an injury to his back this past week, where he ended up going to the hospital. So there's some concerns as to the long-term longevity of a Jimmy G at quarterback. And regardless, even if Mac comes in to be the backup here, it's clear that Brian Hoyer is too old to play this position anymore. And Aiden O'Connell, I mean, he's a rookie, so you give him time, but the dude was a 5th-round pick. Like, I'm sorry, Mitchell, you're insane. Like, he was a I think a 5th-round pick, if not a 4th-round pick. So let me put some respect on Aiden O'Connell's name. But Mac Jones was universally a 1st-round pick in the NFL draft. And ever since his rookie season, he's just been set up for failure. So McDaniels loves his pocket passers. I know Brady is a strong example, but he was a pocket passer. You got Jimmy G. Now Mac Jones, if they bring him in. And McDaniels likely played a large role in the Patriots drafting Mac in the 1st round, because that was kind of shocking. But I think Josh McDaniels, when he was in that position, had some say in that. So I think he's a fan of Mac Jones. And I could see Mac Jones headed to Vegas to pair up with his old OC, to pair up with his old wide receiver 1 in Jacoby Myers, and have some decent success in Las Vegas. So I can't wait to hear your reaction.
This trade in a vacuum makes sense. I think Mac Jones going to Vegas, getting one more shot before he becomes a career backup, I think makes sense with McDaniels, with that all adds up. The issue is, I just don't think that the Patriots, even though they're saying, oh, okay, we don't really care about this year, we're willing to lose some games if it means we're getting better draft position, I don't think that they trade their starting quarterback without a option of okay, yeah, Malik Cunningham got some snaps this week, cool. Bailey Zappi had some games last year, cool. This isn't like I talked to you before, it was like Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, where at the trade deadline last year, everybody was like, oh, well, they can trade Trubisky now that Kenny Pickett's taken over the reins. There is no option to come in here that you're okay, well, this is our high upside play for the rest of the year. There isn't one of those. So this offseason, I think this trade makes a lot of sense, especially if Vegas isn't getting up high enough and New England ends up taking a quarterback, which it seems like they will. This trade makes a lot of sense. I think the package, a 4th for Mac Jones, who was drafted in the 1st round, looked good after year 1, had a really rough year 2, has had a really rough year 3 to this point. I think all of that makes sense. It's just a matter of, would they do this in the middle of the season? I don't think anything, even a Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say Jimmy Garoppolo, before we put this episode, or even after this episode gets put out, he has, they get announced that back is season ending. I honestly think the Raiders would just be okay, first of all, they trade Devontae Adams, and then they'd be okay, well, this season is over, fine, whatever.
But it's not like returning to a playoff contender trading for Mac Jones. That's the point.
That's the point, though. I mean, I get it. You're bringing him in.
I don't think it is the point.
I'm saying I think
you're getting a potential franchise quarterback, which potential, it's a long shot. It's a long shot at this point. I will give you that. But he hasn't had anything to do with, he had, what was the quote that he came out with? Doesn't matter how good the chef is when you're cooking with, something like that. Yeah. The dude has had nothing in his spice cabinet. He's had no vegetable garnishes to throw on his meals, man. There's been none of that. I don't know why I got so deep into the cooking analogy, but it is what it is. I'm just saying. Mac Jones, and also he's entering, the Patriots are going to have to make a decision on his 5th-year option this coming year, or this coming offseason. So, obviously, right now, they're not going to pick that up. And
next offseason. No, you're right. Wait.
It's this coming offseason, because the 2021 class is up, and Chase Young was part of the 2020, and they just picked or declined his option. Right. Yep. Yeah, so it even makes more sense with the contract situation that he's stepping into, and I just think it makes too much sense. And I agree. I totally understand the speculation. If they don't do this in the middle of the season, that's totally understandable. But I think it makes too much sense not to give Mac Jones a chance, and especially as you have it mocked up for a 4th-round pick, for a guy that was a 1st-round talent, no doubt, when he was drafted. And in his rookie year, he proved that. He just hasn't had anything to play with since then. So, and we talked about it a little bit before the podcast. What's the difference between the Patriots are planning on moving on from Mac Jones and the Patriots are trading Mac Jones? I agree there hasn't been any trade rumors about Mac Jones, but this team is moving on. And I know that a lot of teams say that, but it's clear that Mac Jones is the guy. So I think that the Patriots would rather go to their backups at this point anyway. I mean, there's been debate that Will Greer is going to start games here soon. So if Mac Jones is really valued that low, then get rid of him in the trade deadline.